Hello folks, it's vehicle update time. In September last year, 2023, this happened. My old faithful car now going to its new home, so it's quite a sad day, but it's also quite a happy day because I know it's going to the right man who's gonna look after it. So yeah, goodbye. Goodbye. There it goes, my old car. With the Allegro out of the way, that was my car that was used as all season, including winter, transport. That left a gap in my fleet, my transport fleet, for a winter beater. Now, I did go and see a few, as I've no doubt made mention to. This was again sort of September, October, November time last year, just before winter started to bite. I went to see a couple of cars, but they're all far too rotten, or I missed out on one or two. There was a Wolsey 1500. Never got to see that. It'd been snapped up before I could get to it. The Vauxhall Victor, which I'll put a picture up of that. There were no sills. It was like it never had any sills, inner sills, amongst other things. So that wasn't suitable at all. Nothing came up for sale, not a thing. Now, I'd always wanted a van, an old commercial vehicle, because vans, by their very nature, are very useful. And I've got a couple of jobs coming up in the not too distant future where a van is going to be absolutely necessary. So I went on the lookout for a van. Now, the Bedford CA, I did try and bid on one at Matthewson's, the North Yorkshire auction house, well known by many of you on the Good television series. But I wanted to bid on one. I even registered to bid, and this was all done remotely over the telephone and internet, because it was during the coronavirus business. Also, as a consequence of that, prices of old vehicles went through the roof. They went sky high during lockdown, so the van was bid to silly levels. What I budgeted, what I wanted to spend, the auction finished at about 3 or 4 times that. So that was that. I put it out of my head, thought no more of them. And then a while later, probably a year or so later, maybe 2 years later, there was a Bedford CA van, late model, come up for sale on eBay. Now, I missed out on that one, but it did reappear later on, and it's the exact same van I'm speaking to you from now. So I went and had a look at it, as you will have seen in the buying video of this van. I went to get it. Then, with the van home, it was time to go around it, give it a check over, and that's what I'm going to show you now. First job is to go around all the controls, gear linkages, pedals, etc., get the grease gun out and the oil can, because you can see they're absolutely bone dry. So I'll give them a going over. Same with the suspension prop shaft. All the grease nipples, I'll go round them all. And whilst I'm down here, you know, it looks all, there's evidently been a lot of work done. But I'm just going to give it an inspection, make sure it's safe, make sure everything's right as it should be. Jack it up, shake the wheels, check for any play, etc. Although, yeah, as I say, it does drive nicely. Nankang. I think they're alright tyres, them. They're quite a big name now. Will certainly do for an old van, because let's face it, I'm not going to be breaking any land speed records. So I'm going to make a start, and I'll detail some of the other jobs to be done. So I made a list of jobs that wanted doing, faults needing attending to, and I've since rectified some of these, as you're about to see. Now, this is quite an exhaustive list. Some of the things were more important than others, but I shall make a start and see what you think. Shock absorbers loose at the front. Playing the near side wheel bearing at the front, well, that was an easy one because I just jacked it up when I was going round greasing it, checked the wheel bearings, and it was rocking like a ship. So that was a simple matter. Taper roller bearings, packed some more grease into it, and tightened it up. End float at the steering wheel. That was another comparatively easy fault. It was actually the steering wheel nut that was very, very loose. So again, tighten that up, end play gone. Gear linkage and controls dry. Yeah, you've just seen that. I went around with the oil can. That's always neglected on any vehicle I've found. It's one of them little jobs that's actually quite pleasant to do. It only takes half an hour at most to go around with the oil can, but it's surprising how many people neglect to do that. The windscreen rubber is leaking. Well, they've been new rubbers, so a bit of screen seal to go in them will cure that. Grease nipples blocked. That requires some further investigation. I've not got round to unblocking them yet. I've got to see what's involved, because the actual joints might want stripping and cleaning out, but that's to be determined. Brakes drag. The master cylinder here, buried beneath the floorboards. That's a later type replacement. Come on, focus, you piece of... There we go. Yeah, that's a later replacement. Probably a pattern part. Not sure I actually trust that. Although, having said that, I've not had a look underneath yet to see if there's an adjustable push rodder out, so that is to be continued as to why the brakes are dragging now and again. Damage to the wiring loom. Tidy the bodywork up. Couple of areas, although it's essentially sound, there are a couple of areas of the van that would greatly benefit from improvement. No wheel brace or jack, again easily solved. The heater blower was inoperative, and the heater was actually very cold, no heat was coming through. That's also related, as I've since found out, to the temperature gauge being inoperative. Well, there are two faults there, as you'll be about to see. Foot pedal, draft excluders, that's a couple of hours work. I've got new ones that they came with the van, so that's fine. Driver's door catch, that was broken, and the door wasn't holding shut properly. In addition to those comparatively minor faults, there were a lot of major faults as well that wanted seeing to. Some of them rendered the vehicle illegal. For instance, lack of a screen washer. It's actually a legal requirement to have an operational screen washer. There's no washer bottle fitted. The pump's there, but it's currently doing nothing, and there is no trace whatsoever of a washer bottle. I thought I had one, just a bottle and a cage amongst my stuff, but I don't. No sun visor fitted. Well, that was an easy one. I've since put one in. Huddersfield Auto Jumble came up with the goods there. Failure of the rear lights when the headlights were switched on. They worked with the side lights but went out with the headlights, and that was an interesting little fault which transpired to be the switch. Well, it will certainly benefit from a thorough clean, but most of the contact faces are nice and bright. It's an interesting part, this is very interesting switch, like an early form of circuit board really. There's this slider, you pull the switch knob and this slider, sprung slider, moves along to make contact with the various segments here. Now these two finger contacts, very fragile, very delicate finger contacts, act on this disc, which is evidently some sort of variable resistor to alter the brightness of the panel lighting. But prior to dismantling it, I tested it on the meter from across the terminals I believed to be for the panel lighting, and I got continuity, that's testing on ohms to make sure there's a path through. I got a continuity reading, so that was all good. But yeah, thorough clean, which I'll do, and it won't be any worse for a clean, will it? And there it is, all dismantled and cleaned up. It's come up very well, actually. This must be zinc, a casting, and there's the Lucas part number on there. That's important, getting the part number right. You can't just rely on this here, 95 SA, because there could be, that's like a family of switches. Occasionally it can be. You've got to get this number right here. And there's a date there of 5/68, May 1968. If my van was registered in December 1969 on a H plate, then this must predate it. So either that's a replacement from an earlier one, well, earlier part anyway, it could have been a replacement, or they had a lot of these in stock. Well, anyway, that's over a year, nearly a year and a half. Well, it is a year and a half from this being made until the vehicle being registered. Anyway, that's by the by, just points of interest there. So it's all looking a lot better now. Everything's been cleaned up. I've run some very, very fine wet or dry through all these terminals. Just buff them up as best I can, using a dropper WD-40 on this strip. Various small parts, minuscule. Top tip from me, 2 top tips in fact. First of all, if you don't have an exploded diagram, either make notes on the order of things or take pictures at every stage, because you'd be surprised how easy it is to dismantle something and how easy it is to forget in the correct order in which they should be reassembled. The second top tip is to keep all these parts in a little tin or jar or some other receptacle as you go along, so they don't go walkabout. Stuff like that tiny ball bearing and the springs have a knack of going missing. This here is a very interesting piece. Very interesting indeed. That is the dimmer for the panel lighting. And it's an early form of printed circuit. If I can just get this carefully. There you are, an early form of printed circuit, that. It's amazing the work and thoughts that went into these things. Something which you'd never give a second thought to when you're actually operating the vehicle. You just turn it or pull the knob and it works. And you never give it any more thoughts, but all these little bits and pieces are all inside doing the job. So I'm going to reassemble it. Yeah, my mum's been growing tomatoes. They've finished now, but as you can see, it was quite an abysmal harvest. So I'm going to reassemble it, I'll put it back in the vehicle and see how we get on. It was actually this is the culprit. Wrong way round. 2 pips should be acting on this side and the single pip acting on that side. So it had been incorrectly assembled and I just put it back as I found it. Should have thought about that one, as you see. Easy fix, mind you, just swap it round. Clutch slip pulling hard in top gear, that wants attending to sooner rather than later, certainly before any lengthy or strenuous journeys are undertaken. And finally, the head gasket is faulty. Many of these faults came to light on the test drive. That's why 90 odd percent of the time I will always go and test drive or at least view a vehicle before I buy it, so I know just exactly what I'm getting into. And I did suspect the head gasket was faulty because in addition to the electronic ignition, of course, I've not yet mentioned that, but I ripped that out. That was one of the first jobs I did. At the end of my test drive, I wanted to do a hot restart on the van to see how well it started with the engine hot after it had been sitting for 5 or 10 minutes, to get the underbonnet temperature up and show up any issues there. And I couldn't get it restarted for love nor money. The engine just didn't want to know. So I also found some of that oily scum-like stuff in the radiator water, the stuff that sits on top of the water. Well, that's as sure a sign as any that oil's getting into the coolant. That and the electronic ignition, which I didn't trust as far as I could throw it. I mean, there's no way on this earth I am going to trust that with a magnetic collar on the rotor to produce a spark. No way. Some of these faults I've already dealt with, whereas others are just waiting for the right day for me to get around to them. And this is where the fault list currently stands. I've already made a dent in that little lot. So the next time, it'll be engine work, dealing with the head gasket, the ignition side of things, and making that reliable. And there were a few things there that surprised even me. So that's coming up. Next video on the van, more repairs. Hope you can join me.